Good morning, students. I am Dr. Prashant. So today we are dealing with spinal cord. The objectives are introduction, spinal meninges, external features of the spinal cord. By taking the cut section of the spinal cord, we'll see the interior of the spinal cord, what we'll say as internal structure of the spinal cord. So this structure will be having white fibers which are arranged in the form of tracts. So we are going to see the tracts of the spinal cord, the blood supply and the applied aspect. So this lecture we are dividing into two sessions. In the first sessions we'll be studying up to the internal structure of the spinal cord, the tracts, blood supply and the applied aspect I'll be talking on my next session. So basically, spinal cord is a part of the central nervous system. It is a cylindrical structure which is flattened anteroposteriorly, which is present within the vertebral canal. So in this picture, you can see this is a vertebral canal through which passes the spinal cord. In between the vertebra, there is a foramen called as intervertebral foramen. Through this intervertebral foramen, the spinal nerve juts out. Have you ever heard this word called as slipped disc? So this condition, the disc which is present, it protrudes and it impinges this neurological structure. So there is a spinal cord here and the spinal nerve. If it impinge either of this, it produces the typical neurological sign and symptoms. So basically the first sign and symptom shown by it is the pain. So you have heard about the old age people, they are suffering from low back ache due to the slipped disc. Okay, now let us see what are the functions of the spinal cord. The spinal cord, it carries the sensory fibers towards the brain and the motor fibers away from the brain towards the muscles. It is also involved in the execution of the various simple spinal reflex. So think of yourself walking on a ground barefoot. If something pointed pricks your feet, what is the next reaction you do? Yes, obviously you take out your leg out of it. So this sudden reaction is called as a withdrawal reflex. This simple reflex happens at the spinal cord level. Here the cerebrum does not involve to bring about this action, right? So the simple spinal reflexes to happen at the spinal cord level. Now let us see what is the length of the spinal cord. It's in adult it is around 45 centimeter. It weighs around 30 gram. The extent of this spinal cord is from upper border of C1 vertebra to L1 vertebra. The structure of the spinal cord, I said it's cylindrical, but it's not throughout. You can see lower end it's conical. So this lower conical part is called as conus medullaris. To the apex of the conus medullaris is attached the filum terminale. In this picture you can see the thin fibers extending up to the coccyx. It's the filum terminale. It's something like holding the spinal cord from its lower end and gets attached to the bony part, that's the coccyx. So it helps in keeping the spinal cord in a position. Let us see the positional changes of the cord with the age. It is noted that the length of the spinal cord does not increase to that extent as compared to the length of the vertebral column. That's why at the third month the spinal cord occupies the entire length of the vertebral column. see in this picture, you can see the spinal cord has occupied the entire length of the vertebral column. At a birth, it occupies around L3 vertebra, and in the adult it goes around L1 vertebra. It means the vertebral column, as the vertebral column increases in a length, the spinal cord do not increase to that extent. Okay, let us see what are the coverings surrounding the spinal cord. The three protective coverings surrounding the spinal cord are dura mater. You can see this cut open structure as the dura mater, arachnoid part, and the pia mater. The dura mater of the spinal cord, also called as the spinal dura, it extends from foramen magnum to the S2 vertebral level. The spinal dura differs from cranial dura. The cranium, inside the cranium or the brain, is covered by meninges, obviously. The same three coverings, dura, arachnoid and the pia mater. But the dura covering the brain is different from the dura covering the spinal cord. They differ in this way, like the spinal cord is a single spine, the dura of the spinal cord is a single layered, but the dura of the cranium is a double layered, and they are named as endosteal layer and meningeal layer. And the the meningeal layer is firmly adhered to the bone, but here the spinal dura, there is a space between the dura mater and the surrounding bone, so that space between them is called as a epidural space. Likewise, beneath the dura there is a space called as a subdural space. So now coming to the arachnoid mater, it's a thin, transparent and avascular membrane. It extends from arachnoid mater of the brain to S2 vertebra. Pia mater is thin, highly vascular membrane. So see the difference, avascular and this is a vascular membrane. The pia mater extends beyond the spinal cord. You know the spinal cord level L1. The pia mater extends beyond the L1 vertebral level in the form of filum terminale. So I said before, the filum terminale is something extending beyond it. It's a shiny white structure and attaches to the first coccygeal vertebra. So now this cut section of the spinal cord, it shows the meninges surrounding it. So this green colored part on the outside is the dura mater, and you can see the venous, small venous channels. Those are in epidural space. Then comes the sub. After that comes arachnoid mater, and this pink, this orange colored structure surrounding this spinal cord is the pia mater. Between pia mater and the arachnoid mater is called as a subarachnoid space, and this subarachnoid space is filled with CSF. At the region where the spinal cord ends, corresponding to the L1 vertebra, beyond it, as there is a less number of neural tissue, there happens a large space, so where there happens a collection of CSF. So such a collection of CSF are called as a cisterns, and it is in the lumbar region, so it is called as the lumbar cisterns. There is a procedure called as a lumbar puncture. So in the lumbar puncture, what do we collect? CSF. The CSF is collected for therapeutic or diagnostic purposes. So how to approach the CSF, how to approach this subarachnoid space is through L3 and the L4 vertebra. Why L3 and the L4 vertebra? Because the spinal cord does not extend beyond the L1. If it's not found at this level, you can go one level above but not beyond the L1, or you may impinge the spinal cord. So how to come to this point of L3 and the L4 vertebra. How do you find L3, the space between L3 and L4 vertebra? What is that bony point? Definitely it's the iliac crest. The highest point of the iliac crest, it corresponds to the L3 and L4, and the needle is passed through this space for the collection of the CSF. So one of the extension I said regarding the pia mater was phylum terminae. There are few more processes which are extending from the pia mater. So the basic function of this phylum terminae is to keep the spinal cord in a position. Some other denticulatum. So here you can see this pink structure, which the pair of the pink structures. So these are the ligamentum denticulatum. They support the spinal cord laterally from the lateral side. So this they are named as denticulatum. They are tooth-like projections which are present on the sides. So they are called as ligamentum denticulatum. Some other extensions which are present are subarachnoid septum. If you see, this is a cut section of the spinal cord, and you can see this is the meninges surrounding them, and this dotted structure which is extending on the dorsal side line is the subarachnoid septum. So it connects the pia mater with the arachnoid mater. So one more extension, or the one more processes of the pia mater is linea, means line, and you can see in this picture, this specimen is from our museum. This is a spinal cord, and this is the anterior part of the spinal cord. This thick line you can see in the midline is the linea splendens. I have one more picture from our museum which shows the ligamentum denticulatum. So here you can see the dura mater has cut open, and these are the nerves which are spinal nerves which are tied, and this is the spinal cord. And here you can see this thin transparent structures which is tooth-like or conical is the ligamentum denticulatum. Here also you can see in the lower part. Yeah, obviously here you can also see the ligamentum denticulatum. So this ligamentum denticulatum, it is present between the two roots of the spinal nerve, and it is said that they act as a guide for performing chordotomy for the neurosurgeon. Okay. Let us go for the external features of the spinal cord. There are fissures and the sulci. So this is the cut section of the spinal cord, and here on its anterior aspect it bears a fissure called as an anteromedian fissure. On the posterior aspect you can see a thin groove. It's called as a posteromedian sulcus. So the names of it are like this anteromedian fissure, which is deep, and a very thin posteromedian sulcus. If you join these two, it divides the spinal cord in, and each half is further divided into three columns. You can see this anterior, lateral, and the posterior by two more sulcuses. This is anterolateral sulcus, this one is posterolateral sulcus. So how I named this as anterolateral? What is the demarcation for it? It's obviously the spinal nerve. This is the anterior root of the spinal nerve, and this one is the posterior root of the spinal nerve. From where they are jutting out are the anterolateral sulcus and posterolateral sulcus. This posterior column is further divided by the two postero-intermediate fissures and the sulcus. I repeat again, it's on the anterior side anteromedian fissure, on the posterior side it's posteromedian sulcus, two anterolateral sulcus, two posterolateral sulcus, and two postero intermediate sulcus. Yeah, simple. I said the roots, they juts out from this sulcuses. So each of this root, anterior root and the posterior root, unite to form a spinal nerve. So this is a spinal nerve, this is a posterior root and this is the anterior root. Along its posterior root lies the ganglion. So this ganglion is present on its posterior root. Let me tell you, the cells within this ganglion is pseudo-unipolar cells. So it's a pseudo-unipolar. And what is a ganglion? It's a collection of the cell outside the CNS. So the neurons, whenever you find the group of the neurons in the peripheral nervous system, you call it as a ganglion. So this is one of the ganglion which is present along the posterior root. In all, there are 31 pairs of the spinal nerves. So out of this 31 pair, 8 is cervical, 12 thoracic, 5 lumbar, 5 sacral, and 1 coccygeal. Okay. Now, let us know what is a spinal segment. So, the vertebral column is segmented. Likewise, the spinal cord is also segmented. So the spinal segment is the part of the spinal cord through which the spinal nerves comes out. Pair of a spinal nerve comes out. So this is one segment through which we can see the spinal nerves are coming out. This side and this side. This is one spinal segment. So how many spinal segments do you expect? There are 31 spinal segments. How many vertebral columns? So the spinal segment of thoracic, lumbar and the sacral are equal to the vertebrae of thoracic, lumbar and the sacral, but the spinal segment of the cervical is one more as compared to the vertebra. It's 8 spinal segment, but coming to the coccyx, it's one segment, while there are 4 coccygeal vertebrae. So this is a point to be noted. Okay, if you see the entire spinal cord, it shows 2 more enlargements, cervical enlargement and the lumbar enlargement. Why do you expect enlargement in the spinal cord? Why it is not cylindrical and of the same length throughout? Indicates more number of nerve cells there, or more number of fibers around there. So more number of nerve cells in this region, only in the cervical or in the lumbar region. The reason could be the brachial plexus, as this region has to supply upper limb, as this region has to supply upper limb, or the more number of muscles in the upper limb or in the lower limb, as there is a lumbar plexus in this part and there is a brachial plexus in this part. So they show the enlargement in this area. If you see the spinal nerves jutting out from this, the spinal nerves in this upper part, they are more horizontal, but when you proceed towards the lower part, they become more oblique, and this spinal nerves, they are bunched together, and it's giving a typical appearance like the horse tail. This horse tail appearance is called as a cauda equina. Cauda means tail and equina. So now we have covered this following external features, which is the fissures and the sulci, the nerves which are jutting out from the spinal cord. We have seen the spinal segment, we have seen the different enlargement and cauda equina. Let us move towards the internal structure of the spinal cord. The cut section of the spinal cord shows the gray matter and on its peripheral zone the white matter. So these are the cut section of the spinal cord at the different level. This is at the cervical level, this is at the thoracic, this is at the lumbar, and the lower one is at the sacrum. The gray matter consists of this H-shaped mass which is having anterior and the posterior horns. So this gray matter, you can see this dark part, it is having this is H-shaped mass which is having this anterior horn and the posterior horn, and this is having a transverse gray commissure which has a central canal in between. At the region of the thoracic and upper two lumbar segments, you will see one more horn, that is the lateral horn. You can see this small projection in the thoracic region, that's the lateral horn. The anterior horn is not touching the surface cord, but the posterior horn, it touches the spinal. Okay, so the substantia gelatinosa which is present around here, the gray matter. So this gray matter basically consists of this dark colored part. Basically it consists of the nerve cells, neuroglia and few blood vessels. Now let us go in much detail which exactly present within this. So the neurons within this gray matter are classified structurally as Golgi type 1 and type 2. The Golgi type 1 are those which are having long axon fibers, and type 2 are having short axon fibers. So what do you expect with this? The one which is having long axon fibers, the fibers of it, will it leave the gray matter? Yes, obviously. So they will constitute the tract. And the Golgi type 2, they are the short, they will help in as internation, they will be lying within the gray matter itself and help in communicating, or it help in giving a short connections. Yes, function classified as motor neuron, sensory neuron and interneurons. The motor neurons are further divided as alpha and gamma type motor neurons. The alpha motor neurons, I think if it is over in the physiology, it's alpha motor neuron, they supply the extrafusal fibers, muscle fibers, and the gamma motor neuron, they supply intrafusal muscle fibers. They are present along anterior and the lateral horn of the spinal cord, supply the skeletal muscles. The sensory neurons are present along the posterior horn, and they are concerned as a relay center for the sensory information. The fibers or some sensory fibers which are coming towards the spinal cord are relayed in the posterior horn. Interneurons, they are present throughout the gray matter, and they connect the different neurons. They are giving a communication, there are connections to the different neurons. Let us see or enumerate all the nerve cells which are present in the gray matter of the spinal cord. So this is the gray matter. You can see this is a half part, this is the hemisection of the spinal cord, and here you can see this is a gray matter and the remaining part is the white. This gray matter has the different nerve cells. So let us first see along the anterior column. Now this nerve cells, they are grouped together along the medial side, this being a lateral and then in the central. So they are named as medial group of cells, lateral and the central group of cells. This medial group of cells, they consist of the nucleus which receives the nerve fibers from the muscles of neck and the trunk. Sensory fibers they carry the this is being a motor, they carry the nerve fibers towards the muscles of neck and the trunk. The anterior column, basically it is a motor. So from here the axons go towards the muscles, obviously. Yes, the lateral one, they carry C4 to T1 and L2 to S3. They extend from C4 to T1 and L2 to S3, and they carry the they supply towards the muscles of the extremities. The central one is for they are differently at the different positions. The phrenic nucleus, lumbosacral nucleus, and the spinal nucleus of accessory. The phrenic nucleus it supplies the diaphragm, so it is present at the level of C3 to C5. And spinal nucleus of the accessory, you heard about the spinal accessory nerve, 11th cranial nerve. It's a cranial nerve, but it gets the additional spinal support from this nucleus. So this nucleus is present at C1 to C5 spinal root of accessory. The last one, the lumbosacral nucleus. Its function is unknown. Okay. Now let us see the cell groups along the posterior column. They are this yellowish structure you can see at the tip or the apex of this posterior column is the substantia gelatinosa. Next comes the nucleus proprius. Proprius is something with the proprioceptions. Then comes medially a nucleus dorsalis, the visceral afferent nucleus. Let us see what they are concerned with. The substantia gelatinosa, which is present at this tip. Now, this posterior column is concerned with the fibers which are coming from the periphery or from the skin. They relay here. So, which type of nerve fibers they will be carrying? They will be receiving the sensory nerve fibers. Yes. So they relay the sensory fibers. They give the relay point for the pain and the temperature. So note this: the substantia gelatinosa, they are the relay nucleus for pain and temperature, and it is present throughout the cord. Nucleus proprius, it is present throughout the cord and it receives proprioceptive fibers from posterior column. So this is the posterior column. They receive proprioceptive fibers from the posterior column. What is proprioception? You know the exteroceptions, the other what all sensation you know is the pain, temperature, touch. Yes, the proprioception is concerned with the joint sensation, vibration, 2-point discrimination, and sense of position. Nucleus dorsalis, it corresponds to C8 to L2 segments, and nucleus dorsalis, it receives again proprioceptive fibers from trunk and the lower limb. So these fibers are from the spinocerebellar fibers. So they will be carrying a spinocerebellar fibers. Visceral afferent nucleus, they present along T1 to L2 and S2 to S4 level, and they give a relay. They act as a relay nucleus for visceral afferent impulses. So which are the visceral afferent impulses? You can think the viscera, whatever the sensory or the pain sensations from the viscera is carried to this point called as visceral afferent nucleus. Now let us see the intermediate gray column. So this intermediate gray column is divided as intermediolateral and intermediomedial nucleus. The intermediolateral is present along T1 to L2 segments. I will tell you how to remember these segments for the intermediolateral and medial. The sympathetic, they are thoracolumbar outflow. Okay, they give thoracolumbar outflow. So the thoracic is T1 to the L2. Thoracolumbar outflow is towards the sympathetic. So they carry the preganglionic fibers. From here, the preganglionic fibers carried for the sympathetic system, and intermediomedial nucleus, they run along S2 to S4. You know, the parasympathetic, they are having craniosacral outflow, craniosacral, but we are not concerned with the cranium here, cranial nerves, as the cranial nerves will be present in the medulla oblongata or in the brain stem. Maximum cranial nerves are present in the brain stem, and the sacral outflow will be present along this intermediomedial nucleus, S2 to S4 segments. The same nucleus, division of the nucleus for the sake of experimental works, has been divided into 2 zones, 10 zones by Rext, and they are as following. You can see in this picture, they are as following. They are divided as 10 zones. First and the second corresponds with the substantia gelatinosa. Nucleus proprius corresponds with this third and the fourth. Nucleus dorsalis, intermediolateral and intermediomedial nucleus corresponds with this 7th nucleus. And the medial, lateral and the central group of anterior column correspond this 8th, 9th, 10th lamina. So this is all about the gray matter. So basically what we have seen about the gray matter is, it is H-shaped structure having anterior and the posterior horn connected by the transverse gray commissure having the central canal. The ventral horn is also called as the motor horn. It has the nucleus for the motor supply, and the dorsal has the nucleus for the sensory. And we had seen the different nucleus on the anterior. They were along the anterior horn. They were central one. The posterior column, the posterior horn, had the different nucleus. They were substantia gelatinosa, nucleus proprius, nucleus dorsalis, visceral afferent nucleus, intermediate, and along the intermediate part we had intermediomedial and intermediolateral nucleus. Now let us come to the white matter. This white matter is the one which encircles the gray matter. So the surrounding structures here, what we can see is the white matter. This white matter is divided into these 3 columns by anterior one, lateral and the posterior white column. This posterior white column is present between posterior median sulcus and the posterior horn. The lateral column is present between anterior and the posterior horn. So this is the lateral column, and the anterior column is present between anteromedian fissure and the anterior horn. So now, each of this column, they will be carrying fibers. So these nerve fibers, they are arranged in the form of tracts. They are also called as fascicula, or they will be called as lemniscus. The fascicula are the round bundles of the fibers. So in the cross section, those fibers appears round. Lamina, when the fascicles, or the lamina, when these fibers, they are flattened. These fibers, they are flattened. They are the lamina. Okay, so basically these tracts, they are divided as an ascending tract, descending tract, and intersegmental. What do you understand by ascending? The one which ascends in the spinal cord, the the fibers which are ascending within the spinal cord. So what do you expect, like which fibers are ascending in this spinal cord? Obviously the sensory fibers. They have to carry the sensation from the skin towards the brain. So that's the ascending tract. The descending tract are those which are coming down, or which are descending. They are the motor fibers. They are going towards the muscles. The other thing which is left is the intersegmental. They will help in connecting this two nucleus within the spinal cord. So they are intersegmental fibers. They keep on giving association of the different nucleus. So here we come to an end for this topic. Thank you. The details of the tracks we'll be seeing in